Hey everybody.
Hey, so we have a fun topic to talk about today,
Yeah,
the
we do.
solar system.
Out of this world.
Yeah, out of this world. We are going above and beyond today. So we have a few people joining us. We have Vanessa saying hello. Hey, Vanessa, glad you're joining us. Patricia also saying hello. Teresa says, what's going on? So we actually do our Cloudy with a Chance of Learning, these live interactive weather classrooms weekly on YouTube, Facebook, and also our Kids 5 app every Monday through Friday, every day at 1.
Yeah, and you can bring your questions about all the different topics that we do. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to turn my phone up there. But you can bring all your questions and we'll be happy to answer them. Today's topic is the solar system.
And Shelby from 3rd grade also joining us from San Antonio. Hey, Shelby, glad that you're here.
Hey,
along with Matthew. Matthew's been on a few of these classroom talks.
Yeah,
along
so
with
is Shelby.
Yeah. Tammy, we have the girls watching. Awesome.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
Vanessa also sending a waving emoji. Okay, so let's get right into it. So we're talking about the solar system today, and I had asked you earlier, did you have, your teacher teach you anything on how to remember the solar system?
Yeah, there was something that we used to do. Like, it was almost like the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally thing.
Yeah.
I got so much math knocked into my brain throughout high school and college that I can't remember the one, though, for the planets.
So what I want you to do is think about the order of our planets in our solar system. Include Pluto. Of course, we have the sun, and we're actually going to start out with the sun today. And we're not going to get into everything because the solar system is so interesting and there's so many different things. I think we could carry on with this topic for about 3 to 4 weeks, honestly.
Yeah, this is going to be a weekly thing. So this is just part 1. It's kind of like how we do tropical 2.
Kind of this saying that has helped you with memorizing the planets. Maybe your teacher in school has taught you about how to memorize the planets. Share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you've memorized the planets. I know it's kind of tricky. It's like learning math. Sometimes you lose the order of the planets a little bit.
Yeah, and you got to remember, which one is where. Different thing each Tuesday with the tropics. This is going to be one of our new topics is the solar system.
So one way I learned about memorizing my planets was my very excellent mother just served us 9 pizzas. So that's a way I've memorized
That is an excellent. I will take 9 pizzas.
Who wouldn't? So if you have
how many moons does this one have, and just all sorts of different things. I remember learning in elementary school and trying to remember all the different things about each planet, and it was broken up into sections, kind of like what we're doing here today.
So let's look at our solar system as a whole. We have the sun, then we have Mercury, Venus, which is my personal favorite planet. We have Earth, my second favorite planet, which is Mars, Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, Saturn, Uranus with a funny name, Neptune, and Pluto, the dwarf planet.
Yep, and you know what my favorite planet is?
Which one?
Of course I love Earth, but second place comes Jupiter. The storm systems on Jupiter are just so amazing. And we're going to talk about that another week, because this week we're only going to cover through Earth, correct?
Exactly. So if you have a few minutes here or a few seconds, write down the order of the planets. You can even write it down with the first letter. So you can include the sun if you want. It's not a planet. It's technically in our solar system, and all these planets orbit around our sun. And each planet has its own characteristics, its own temperature. Of course, we have Earth with water, and we have, lives living on Earth, of course. But then we have different sizes of the planets, different tilts, different rotations. So not every planet rotates the same. But I don't want to give too much away here.
Yeah, I think the best thing to say is each planet has its own unique setup. That some of us have a really intense atmospheres. Some of us have an atmosphere like the one that we live on Earth. Some of them don't have atmospheres.
Well, there you go.
We're going to be talking about that today.
And magnetic fields. That's a big thing. Now, I know sometimes we have talked about satellites in our weather classrooms. We have talked about our own atmosphere on Earth, consists of. So some of these things that we'll be covering will kind of be a review with satellites, also with our planet Earth and the atmosphere and what our atmosphere consists of. So today, because there's so much to talk about, we are only covering the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, because there are some cool facts. And in fact, when I was researching some things from NASA yesterday, I found the coolest thing ever, and I didn't even know it, and I just found it out, so I'm excited to share it with you in this upcoming slide. So let's dive right into it. Let's talk about the sun. So the sun has its own gravity, which actually holds our solar system together.
Yeah, it's a hot ball of glowing gases, hydrogen and helium, and it's pretty big, huh?
Yeah, so it's about, when you compare it to Earth, it's about 109 times the size of Earth. So thinking about grabbing our planet and then multiplying it by 109 times, and you get the sun.
Yeah, and the surface temperature 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. My very excellent mother, who makes 9 pizzas, could cook those pizzas. Just served us 9 pizzas. Could make those pizzas really quick with how hot the sun is.
Yeah, and one thing to note is the sun, no moons or rings, but rather than having moons or rings, it has planets orbiting around this star. So remember, it's a hot ball of glowing gases, and those gases mainly consist of hydrogen and helium. Weather Chief Bill Taylor, he talked about lightning. Stacia Wilson has also talked about lightning. So it's kind of a review question here. So we're going to make you think a little bit and kind of compare the temperature of lightning and the temperature of the surface of the sun. So remember, the surface temperature right around 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's hot.
So let's move on.
But before we go much further, actually, before we jump in more into Mercury, I want to mention something about the sun, something really unique. We sometimes have space weather, which is it's solar winds. That's the best thing to say. And that's solar flares that come off the sun. Sometimes there's a lot of energy that's dispersed from the sun, and it heads towards our planet. And it's called solar winds, and can be considered space weather. And it actually also is responsible for the aurora borealis. Whenever we see the lights that are around the poles, if you've ever seen the blues and the purples and the greens that can sometimes be seen in the sky, they look like ribbons. They've been featured in some movies. That's what helps cause aurora borealis.
So let's see. Paula says, I learned to learn the planet's order. My very educated mother, Abigail, just served us nachos. Nice. So let's see what else here. Jennifer says, my very excellent mother just served us nachos. I've heard the nachos thing too. That's the order of the planets. That is correct.
Yeah, and that's, of course, when I was a kid, Pluto was still a planet. And so that's of course after Pluto was knocked down, demoted, and then kind of promoted again, but not completely.
It's now a dwarf planet, so yeah. Jennifer says, my favorite planet is Mars. Mars loves visitors. That's one thing. We have the Mars rover. Mars is very interesting, hence why we're going to hang on to Mars for part 2 once we dive into the solar system next Monday. So definitely stay tuned for that, because there's a lot to talk about with the planet Mars. Amy says, my favorite planet is the sun. Now, the sun happens to be a star in our solar system. It's not technically a planet according to NASA, so that is one
but
thing.
It is my favorite star too. So I agree.
Yeah. So we've had a few people say, hey, when I was in school, or when I am in school, my teacher doesn't really include Pluto as a planet. It's kind of like a controversial thing where in my mind, it's still a planet because it's considered a dwarf planet. But there's some research and some differences there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of mixed signals coming out about Pluto. Whatever Pluto is, we still love it though.
Yeah.
So
we love our little planet in our solar system. All right, so let's talk about Mercury. Now, it happens to be the planet that is right next to the sun. So this is going to be the first planet in our solar system when you're looking from the center, and then we're going out. So you're not starting with Pluto, you're actually starting with Mercury. So it is the smallest planet in our solar system, and it's slightly bigger than the Earth's moon itself. So our moon, it is pretty small. And it has a solid surface with craters. and it goes around the sun in about 88 Earth days. Now for us, it's 365. So since Mercury is so close to the sun, it takes less time to orbit around the sun, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it can get around a lot quicker. It's kind of like if you were trying to, it's easier for us to drive all the way to Dallas than to drive all to Los Angeles or Montana, just because it's not as far of a distance. The Mercury doesn't have to go as much of a distance around.
Exactly. So Mercury, it is one of the smallest planets, and this is my favorite fact here. So did you know that craters and features on the planet Mercury are named after authors like Dr. Seuss, artists, and musicians? So let's go ahead and pull this graphic up full screen because I need to see this feature. So this is a feature named after Dr. Seuss. If you've ever read, Green Eggs and Ham, this is exactly, this is what Dr. Seuss writes, and this is a feature on the planet Mercury that was named after Dr. Seuss. So it's colorful, it's slightly odd, it's interesting, just like Dr. Seuss's illustrations in his book. So I actually found this fact to be very, very interesting. I didn't even know that features and craters on the planet Mercury were named after, artists, musicians, and authors. So famous authors too. Yeah,
that's super cool stuff there. And Mercury, there's all sorts of little other different tidbits about the planet. Despite what's going on further away from Mercury, the solar winds that we talked about kind of help keep the atmosphere off of it. They kind of have helped wither it away over time.
So now you're getting into the atmosphere part of Mercury then.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, I just thought this fact was so cool when I found it yesterday. I just thought it was so interesting. So now let's get into my favorite planet. We're going to talk about Venus. Now, Venus happens to have a thick atmosphere that traps heat, and it is one of the hottest planets in our solar system. In fact, it's so hot it could melt iron.
Wow. I mean, that is super hot temperatures there on Venus. So yeah, 880 degrees.
Yeah, 880 degrees, and Venus has mountains just like our planet Earth, and valleys and thousands of volcanoes. In fact, the highest mountain on Venus is Maxwell. How would you say this? Montes, I would say. I'm not sure. I'm sure there are different pronunciations for it, but this mountain is about 20,000 feet. So you compare that to Mount Everest, it's pretty comparable.
Yeah. So pretty large mountain there.
So this is actually my favorite planet just because it rotates backwards, and Venus is roughly the same size as our planet Earth, and also Venus makes a complete orbit around the sun in 225 Earth days. So you compare that to Earth, have about 365 days around the sun. And so this is going to be the second planet in our solar system. It's the second planet that is a planet that is closest to the sun, and its orbit is more circular. You have some orbits in our solar system that are oval and elliptical.
Yeah, and an orbit is how a planet travels around the sun. That's an orbit. Yeah. You have a rotation, a complete rotation is a day. An orbit would be 365 Earth days. That would be a complete orbit around the sun.
Right. So, few notes here. Now, Venus, it rotates backwards. So it's one of the planets in our solar system, just like Uranus, that actually rotates backwards as it orbits around the sun.
Compared to how we go around the sun.
Accidentally advanced this graphic here. Oh, man, this is exactly what happens when you're working from home here.
Yeah, but it's all good. I mean, a little bit. There's the notes on Mercury again. And, back into Venus, Venus, they've tried to land things on Venus.
They have.
And when they try to get it onto Venus, it will land, and then typically it will melt or overheat and shut down on them. That is NASA. So
Right. So the atmosphere is kind of the trickier part when traveling to the planet Venus. It's because it is one of the hottest planets of our system, of our solar system, with that surface temperature at 880 degrees. So this is kind of a review here. It also has mountains and thousands of volcanoes, valleys present on Venus, and of course, it takes about 225 Earth days to rotate or orbit rather around the sun. So let's talk about Earth.
This was a little familiar.
This one is a little familiar. So, we have water, and it is our planet Earth is actually the 5th largest planet in our solar system, and most of the planet is covered in water. But about how much of our planet is covered in water? Try to see if you can think about that one in a percent.
Yeah, I will tell you it's a lot.
It is a lot. Most of our Earth looks blue from space, so you could see all that water. And of course, we talked about the length of a year being about 365 days. And so I want you to think about that. But the answer is 70%. And we talked about our Earth tilt. We talked about the 4 seasons in one Weather Minds interactive classroom. And the tilt of our Earth, our Earth is tilted on its axis about 23.4 degrees. And that tilt is responsible for our 4 seasons, being winter, spring, fall, and summer.
Yep. And, man has only walked on one of the planets that we've talked about today.
They walked on it today?
They walked on it today. Earth,
joking.
Which is the only planet that man has walked on, or people have walked on.
Yep.
We've never been to Venus. We've never been to Mercury. Probably not going to be going to those two. I wouldn't say, but not anytime soon, I would say.
Right.
But Earth is the only planet that we've been on. And, we've been to the moon as well. The United States, we went to the moon. And that brings us to, another topic. We have our natural satellite around the Earth, which is the moon.
The moon. And then we compared it to the size of Mercury, too.
Yeah, and remember, Mercury, pretty small.
Yeah, it is roughly about the same size as our moon. So let's talk about more of the atmosphere. Now, we also covered, what the atmosphere consists of. So there are some other gases like water vapor. So what would those other gases equal in our atmosphere? We also have 2 other big ingredients, nitrogen and oxygen. So try to think about that. This is a review here talking about what our atmosphere consists of, and it helps us with breathing on planet Earth.
Yeah, and remember, I will say this, oxygen is not the most abundant in our atmosphere. Remember that.
Yep.
Try to guess which one it is.
I have a lot of folks saying 70%. So you were correct with water on Earth. Yeah, great job. So now we'll dive into it. About 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% other gases, which is argon and water vapor. Water vapor is important when we're talking about our water cycle. You may have heard of evaporation, condensation, precipitation, which means rain. And so water vapor is a big thing to have on our planet Earth. And get this, I know we talked about the sun, but did you know it takes about 8 minutes for light from the sun to reach the Earth?
Oh, wow. Because it's traveling such a far distance.
So that's another interesting fact that I learned yesterday too.
Wow. So if we just turned off the sun and the light turned off, it would take 8 minutes for us to realize, oh, the sun turned off.
Right.
Which is not possible, y'all, but just saying.
And like a lot of our planets in our solar system, they do consist of multiple layers. There's a core inside the sun, but also there's an inner core, an outer core, a mantle, and a crust. And so there's so much to talk about with our solar system too.
Yeah, and each of these planets, they all have that unique thing. And here on Earth, just like other planets, we have craters and we have mountains. And so these planets, they may have a lot of things different, but a lot of them have similar things to our planet. The thing that really makes us different, though, is that water, the amount of water we have on our planet.
And so we want to know what your favorite planet is, favorite planet fact is, and it could have been from this weather classroom. I think my favorite weather fact is the fact that features and craters named after famous authors and artists and musicians on the planet Mercury. I never knew that, and I just think that's so interesting. There's many named after people on that planet. So
wow, that's fascinating.
Anything else you want to add?
I will say that, Earth is the planet that we know the most about. There's a lot of planets out there that we are all trying to find out more information about. We know a lot about our moon.
Right.
We know a lot. We're learning more and more about other planets thanks to lots of missions by NASA, like Mars. But there's still so much to learn, and that's something that's so fascinating about space. There's so much unknown and so much more to learn out there, and we're really excited to be able to talk to you all about this and just teach you a little bit more and more about what is going on in the solar system.
So I am going to backtrack here just so you can see what exactly we are going to cover over the next few weeks. Andrew and I had said that, there's so much to talk about with the solar system that, gosh, we could probably talk for hours, but today we only covered through the planet Earth. Now, next Monday, we're going to have Solar System Part 2. We'll be talking about Mars, the Mars rover, many visitors on the planet Mars. Of course, it is our neighboring planet. Then we have Jupiter, one of the biggest planets in our solar system.
The gas giant.
Yes, the gas giant.
One of the gas giants.
And it has a cool weather phenomenon on that planet too.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I like Jupiter so much, why I mentioned that earlier, the storm systems that they have on the planet. It's very fascinating to look at from space.
And then we have Saturn, we have Uranus, Neptune, and then Pluto. So we'll probably talk about Mars, Jupiter, Saturn up to Uranus, then Neptune, I would say next Monday. And then we'll talk more about Pluto, asteroids, comets, and the Milky Way galaxy. We'll talk more about that in Part 3.
Yeah, so again, so much in space, so much to learn about. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the Hubble telescope as well. The telescope that's out there in space that's constantly capturing pictures of all these things and capturing pictures of other solar systems and other galaxies from a distance.
So I know we covered the moon in one weather classroom as well. We actually had a Moon Monday. It was all dedicated to the moon. So if you want to find that, you could go to our KENS 5 YouTube page or our Facebook page and look up that Weather Minds classroom. So we talked about the moon in that one. So we're probably not going to cover the moon as much in this, basically just size comparisons.
Yeah, and there's also something that we're going to talk about that we can include next week, the asteroid belt, which is out there, and it's a field of asteroids that's sitting between two of our planets, which I don't want to give too much away, but we're going to talk more about that next week. But there's a space within our atmosphere, not within our atmosphere, within our solar system, where there's just a bunch of asteroids, and it's all the way around. So we're going to talk about that, how they think that may be there, and just a little bit of other random facts about the asteroid belt.
And Paula also mentioned the asteroid belt. She said Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, asteroid belt, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. I think that's the order.
That's it.
Yeah,
you're correct. That's where that asteroid belt sits, just past Mars, between Mars and Jupiter. And we're going to talk about why they think that asteroid belt is there out of all the other places it could be in the solar system.
And also, Mark, thanks for watching with the kiddos. He said, thanks, my kids enjoyed watching this. Awesome. I love space, so I think it's just so interesting. Also adding other planets, moons have names. Does our moon have a name? I know Jupiter has multiple moons. You know,
so
we just
Saturn.
refer to ours as the moon, but there are different names that, there are over 190 plus moons. And ours happens to be the fifth in the solar system, our moon. So I know Jupiter has a lot of moons. We'll dive into that once we hit Jupiter next day. So we'll definitely talk more about the moons in our solar system. Elizabeth, no worries if you're late. You can always watch these and kind of, rewind and just with us.
Yeah. And again, today was part 1 of the solar system. We're going to talk more about the solar system next week, probably the week after that. Maybe even this may be a 4-week series here about the solar system.
I think so. I think we could go 3 to 4 weeks. There's a lot of interesting things to talk about. So let's pull a schedule.
Really? Connection.
So let's pull it.
What time of vision wraps? It's amazing.
Thanks for full screen.
Timing was amazing. You want to put something in there?
And it'll be fine.
Huh. Hello? Guys, can you hear still? I think we lost connection for a second. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I believe we're back on now.
Excellent. Cool. Well, guys, here's a look at what we have over the next few days. Tropical Tuesday expected for Tuesday. El Nino versus La Nina for Wednesday, which is all about kind of things that happen around the planet. It's weather patterns that we study. That's going to be on Wednesday. Thursday is cyclogenesis. And that's going to be a little bit about how cyclones start to form, those areas of low pressure that we talk about. And then Friday is Fun Time Friday. That's going to be just like what we do every week. You send us your photos and your stories, and we share them. So Tropical Tuesday, on Tuesday, we're going to talk all about the hurricane hunters, the people who fly into hurricanes, and the importance of the data that they gather. That's going to be really exciting. It's a fascinating thing, and they're very brave people who do it, and I can't wait to continue to cover these tropical talks that we do every Tuesday.
So next Monday, if you're going to join us for part 2 of the solar system, think about this week. What is your favorite planet and why? And let us know. Comment next Monday. Let us know your favorite planet and why, what you found interesting, maybe today about Mercury, Venus, and our planet Earth, also about the sun. Some people said the sun was their favorite.
Yeah, we'll talk more about all this stuff, so be sure to tune in. But guys, for now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. We hope you have a wonderful day.